Today, we're talking about the 22LR, the smallest and cheapest of the rounds that are normally in use. Great for plinking, can be used for taking small game, can even be used for personal defense, maybe. Lots of ammo tests have been done. I've done a bunch of ammo tests. And one thing I always come back to is, it really depends what barrel length you're shooting it out of, because little 22s, they could be fired out of a tiny mini-revolver. They could be fired out of a conventional sized handgun. This is a Bersa Thunder 22 with a 3.5-inch barrel. Could be fired out of a full-size rifle. This one is actually just a little bit short. This is a 16-inch barrel rifle. So the 22 could be fired out of any of these. How do you know how the ammo performs from the gun you're intending to fire it from? Well, that's what I'm going to try to narrow down, because today I'm going to take 4 different types of 22 ammo and put them through all 3 of these guns. And we'll find out, is a round good for use from a rifle but terrible from a handgun? Is it good for the mini revolver but not good for the semi-auto? Maybe it doesn't feed or cycle a semi-auto. We're going to find out. We're going to use the ClearBallistics ballistic gel for this testing. I'm going to fire these rounds. I'm going to see chronograph readings from each of the guns. We're going to see how they penetrate, whether they expand, and what you can expect when you use these particular types of ammo in these types of guns. The test ammo for today, we're looking at the Winchester 40 grain PowerPoint hollow point, the CCI Velocitor, and a couple of entries from Aguila, the Supermaximum and the Sniper Subsonic. Now, I know there's lots of people who want other types of ammo to be tested. This will be a series. I'll do more in the future. I'll test lots of ammo. I will not possibly be able to test it all, but I will get through it. This round represents 12 different ammo tests, all in one video. So 4 rounds, 3 guns, that's 12 tests. I'm going to try to get a lot more to you, so hopefully, you'll find something interesting in these first 4, and if not, look for the next test. We'll have more coming up. These are Winchester 40 grain PowerPoint hollow points from the NAA. And they reach 7 3/4, 8 1/4, 9 inches, and the first one was 11 1/8. From the Bersa Thunder, had one properly expanded and reached to 8 3/4. Another one didn't properly expand, and I don't really know, it looks like it hit the table. So 10 3/4 on that one. The third shot that I took exited the side of the block. From the Henry rifle, 3 shots. All of them did really well for self-defense standards. One of them reached to 11 inches. A second was 14 3/4. And the third reached all the way to 15 inches. However, just of note, that one seems to have left behind 3 chunks at around 6.5 to 8.5 inches. So it did shed some weight for what that's worth. We have here the recovered bullets of the Winchester PowerPoint. The top row is the North American Arms mini-revolver. Nothing to be seen here, obviously. They're not going to expand from such low velocity, so they just act like solid bullets, and then they did fine for that. Interesting is the second row. That's the Bersa Thunder, where we had one that actually expanded. It broke apart there, but it expanded to a big size. And the second one, you can see in the mouth of it, it looks like it was trying to. It was starting to expand. That usually doesn't happen from the little handgun, so that's interesting. Penetration wasn't great. And then the third row is from the rifle, and you can see that they all did expand and also fall apart. That's not really what you want to see happening with rifle ammo. It's not like we're making new wound channels here. These bits that fall off just fall off. They get left behind in the wound path, so they're in a hole that's already there. They didn't go and make a new hole, so what you really end up with is the deepest penetrating portion is smaller. You can see that this base that flew the furthest is actually quite a bit smaller than it was from the handgun, so that's not ideal performance. However, it would hurt whatever you shot it at, so none of them, I wouldn't say that any of them was ideal or really what we're looking for. It was certainly not a standout performer. I'd say in all of them it was adequate in general bullet performance, and especially from the NAA and the Bersa, inadequate as far as penetration depth goes. From the NAA 22LR, shortest bullet was 7.5 and one at 8 inches. Then they all get fantastic. 13 1/4, 13 3/4, 14 1/4, all the way to 15 3/4 inches. First bullet came in at 8 3/4. Then we had one at 9. We had one at 10 inches and one at 10 1/4. Now, if we had consistently over 10 with expansion, that might be something to talk about. But having them come in at 8 3/4 and none of them going further than 10 1/4 makes me think that we're probably giving up too much penetration in exchange for the expansion that it delivers. From the 22 LR rifle, and we got penetration figures at 9 at 10 inches, 2 at 10 1/4, and 1 at 10 1/2. And you can see there's quite a bit of lead shedding going on. They definitely splintered and lost some of their weight as they traveled. That's an interesting round because from the mini-revolver, they didn't expand, but they got beat up on the butt end of them so much that they are bigger than they would otherwise have been. And they had intriguing penetration. Some of them, I guess the ones that grew bigger, had pretty lousy penetration, 8 inches or so, 8 to 9 inches. And then some of them that stayed smaller penetrated huge, 14, 15 inches. So that's an interesting round. Not sure it's the best, but I did like it. Now, from the handgun, the penetration was low and they failed to cycle. So even though they did expand big, they didn't penetrate very far, and they're totally useless for a semi-automatic. Might be fine from a revolver, though. Then when we get to the big rifle, they penetrated mediocre, 9 inches to 10 1/2, and they shed a lot of weight. They all expanded, but they also all came apart. That's just not necessarily a good thing. I'll tell you what, if you were using this for, small game or something like that, maybe they're just fine. Maybe they're good for that. But against a human, there are better self-defense rounds that you can use rather than this. So Supermaximums, the one that I liked it the best from, I guess, was the mini-revolver. The other ones, not really sold on it, but, you can see the results and judge for yourself. Aguila Sniper Subsonic from the NAA mini-revolver. From the Bersa Thunder 22, the shortest bullet came in at 10 3/4 inches. Then we had one at 11 and one at 11 1/2. Then the next two, one came in at 12 1/4 and one did hit all the way to 13. Now, basic penetration isn't the only thing. We don't get any expansion with these, but you can see that all of the bullets are facing backwards. They all tumbled over during their travel through the gel, so that's gotta hurt when the bullet turns over that way, and at some point it's traveling fully sideways, which you can see here in this portion of the gel. It looks like the bullet just flipped over and ripped through there. From the full-size rifle, the Aguila Sniper Subsonics penetrated pretty fantastically. Shortest bullet was 11 1/2. Next one we had 12 1/4, 2 at 12 1/2, and 1 at 13 1/2. That's pretty good. That's a big, heavy bullet penetrating deeply. And these are some of the Sniper Subsonics. Now, this is a weird bullet. This is a gigantic 60 grains. That's huge for 22. And from the NAA mini-revolver, not very good. It's too much bullet, and it cannot get it up and moving, so it penetrated really short, around 6 1/2 inches. However, from the handgun, those did pretty well. We were looking at 11 to 13 inches of penetration, and they all tumbled and rotated around. And from the rifle, they got about another 100 feet per second of velocity. They didn't really penetrate any further, maybe just a little bit. I'd say from either one of those, for use against a human, those are pretty good choices. Shortest bullet came in at 8 inches, one at 8 1/4. Then we had one at 11, one at 12, and one at 13 inches. So not too bad. Not as consistent as I would like to see, but not bad. From the Bersa Thunder 22, superb performance, 14 1/4 and 17 inches. Here's the CCI Velocitors from the 16-inch barrel Henry rifle, the masterclass on what we like to see. Consistency, deep penetration and proper expansion. We're looking at shortest bullet 14 3/4, 2 of them at 15 and 1 at 16 inches. No doubt the Velocitors are a fantastic load in a full-size rifle. Now we're moving on to what I think is the standout winner of this group of 4. Now the Velocitors from the mini-revolver, they didn't expand and they had inconsistent penetration. A couple of them came in short at around 8 inches, and then 3 of them went huge distance, 11, 12, 13 inches. So I found other better performing rounds from the mini revolver. I don't know that I would say Velocitors are the best. They really do lose too much velocity and they were inconsistent, but they're still decent. Not a bad choice. They're just better choices. Then from the handgun, the Bersa Thunder 22, check this out. We actually had a completely expanded hollow point. When does that happen with a little handgun? This one is a partially expanded, and the penetration was massive on these. Absolutely fantastic. 14 1/4 inches for the one that did expand, and 17 inches for the one that partially expanded. That's great from a handgun. That's what I would use if I was going to be relying on a handgun or a short barrel revolver. Then from the rifle, it's perfection. They really came into their own from the rifle. They picked up a lot of velocity. They all expanded to what's gigantic for a 22. So big thumbs up for the Velocitors from the rifle. Mixed thumbs up on the mini revolver, and a good thumbs up on the handgun. If you like what you saw, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified when the next test is posted.